Hello, everybody, and good morning. It is such a pleasure to be with you today for our special breakfast briefing at Seismic on evolving the B Corp standards. We're going to be kicking off this session in the next 5 minutes. So in the meantime, I invite you to get comfortable, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and get yourself nice and comfortable, ready for the session. For those of you I've not met before, it's a pleasure to be your host today. My name is Olivia Jennings. I am a consultant at Seismic, and I'm going to be hosting today's event. As you get yourself comfortable and settled into the session, I'll just point out that in the bottom right of your screen, you can find the chat for today's session. And we'd love you to interact as much as possible and to be part of the conversation today. So please could you pop in there? Where are you joining from? And I'd love to know, what have you had for breakfast today? If you could pop that in the chat, that would be really, really great. I had Weetabix for breakfast today, which is a real British staple. Nice, reliable brekkie. So we'd love to hear from you. If you pop down into the chat, which you can find on the right of your screen, where are you calling from today? Quick introduction. And hello, hi from Afghanistan. Wonderful to have people joining from all over the world. Hello, Ashley from Ireland. Camilla from Stroud. Wonderful to have you with us. Good morning, Lynn and George from Lily's Kitchen. Sorry to hear you haven't had breakfast yet. Hopefully you got something tasty to come. Hello, Laura. Belvita breakfast bars. I can understand why you're obsessed. They're delicious. Hello, Polly. Hi, Lucy from Cork. Wonderful to have you with us. Polly, flat white is a great choice. That's my go-to coffee too. Lucy, Tom, Ben, Lee, Marcelo, Anna, wonderful to have you. Hello, Julia. Lovely to see you and have you joining us today. And Oliver Louise, wonderful. Belvita's a popular one among the audience. That's good to know. Great. Well, now we're all warmed up and hopefully comfortable and settled in. I will get going on the session. And just so you know, this session will be recorded and a copy will be sent to you after the webinar. So don't worry about taking notes. You can just sit back, enjoy, and take it in whilst you sip your coffees. So I'll dive in now to the agenda for today. Today, we are talking about the evolution of B Corp standards. This is the biggest change in standards in B Corp history since the inception of the movement in 2006. And there is an incredible amount of work that has gone into and is going to continue to go into this evolution, both at B-Lab, the certifying body, and across the B Corp community, which I know many of you in this call are already a part of. We today are going to be learning from B-Lab about why these changes are happening, and then dive into what this means for your business and how we recommend that you engage with this evolution. We know, whilst we also have some B Corps in the audience today, there's a range of levels of experience with the movement. So for those of you joining us who are very new to B Corp, don't worry, we'll be providing a quick refresher on what B Corp is in a moment. Today is a unique opportunity to hear directly from B-Lab Europe, who Seismic is very lucky to have a close collaborative relationship with, as some of our colleagues work part-time at B-Lab Europe to support the movement directly. We also have a unique chance to understand the changes that are coming in a digestible way, to ask questions directly to B-Lab and to our brilliant co-founder, Emile Bourbeau, and a chance to hear about commonly asked questions from others in Seismic's community, RE B Corp certification. At the end of the session, as you'll see on the agenda, we will have a dedicated Q&A section, and we really want to hear your questions and put them to our speakers. So I'd like to invite you to put them in the chat as they percolate throughout the session. We will be tracking them, collecting them, and then put as many as we can to the speakers at the end of the session. If there are lots of questions left over, we'll do our best to make sure they're answered offline too. So please don't hesitate for any questions you have in the chat. So a quick run through of who are we? Who's Seismic? Well, I'll briefly tell you that we are sustainability partners. We pride ourselves in driving lasting environmental and social change across all areas of business and bring together world-leading reporting and disclosure, communications, net zero and B Corp experts to help businesses lead the shift. And in my role at Seismic, I feel very fortunate to have helped a number of businesses in navigating the evolution of standards and look ahead to how that influences them. So we look forward to sharing some of those insights with you today. Here's a sample of businesses we've been very fortunate to have worked with to reach their sustainability ambitions. You can see that we've worked with a real range of sizes and sectors, B2B, B2C, tech, private equity, and have supported just under 200 businesses in our time at Seismic. And one of my favourite parts of our work is events like this, bringing you all together to hear firsthand from experts and peers about how they've taken their organisation on a journey and to share lessons among this community along the way. For those clients that we've supported, there's a variety of areas where we've helped them accelerate their ESG progress, and they're shown on the screen. A sample of those, for example, are optimising ESG performance through an ESG strategy, guiding you through the ever-changing and evolving regulatory landscape through our reporting and disclosure practice, helping hundreds of businesses getting the most out of B Corp certification, not only certification, but also simply engaging with the movement, helping you build your road to net zero, and partnering with businesses in a capacity building function as an extension of your team or as a wholly outsourced function. And then finally, sustainability communications. We apply a purpose-driven lens and deep impact knowledge to high-quality sustainability communications with our clients. So now we've got that quick introduction done, it gives me great pleasure to be introducing our co-founder and Chief Impact Officer, Amy Bourbeau. Amy was the first B Corp advisor in the UK and has trained hundreds of other advisors to do the same. She has experience in helping hundreds of businesses get the most not only out of certification, but engaging with the B Corp movement. Personally, I think there's no one better to help you digest how this evolution of B Corp standards will impact your business. So thank you so much for being with us today, Amy, and over to you.
Thanks, Olivia. I appreciate that. And thanks everyone for being here. It's been really great to see all of the interest in today's session. I'm not surprised at all because it's a topic that's very hot in the sustainability community and on people's minds. So really happy that we get to be chatting to you about this today. And, you know, to Olivia's point, we have a real range of people joining today, quite a few friendly names and faces who, hello, it's lovely to have you here. And also quite a few people who are new to our community. So welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And as Olivia said, a range of knowledge of B Corp and where the movement is at. And so I just wanted to kind of give a quick overview. We love B Corp because of the amazing breadth of benefits that it offers to the business community, to the planet, to society. And I fell in love with B Corp back in 2014 when I first heard about what it was, because it is this tangible, useful, accessible tool for businesses to use to really understand what is it that I need to do to be a responsible business, and how can I start on this journey, because it can feel really overwhelming. And the good news is that is still happening. So as a quick refresher, of what B Corp is. It's kind of multiple things depending on how you look at it, but we like to kind of summarize it as it's a management tool. So regardless of whether you want to certify, you can use the tool, the framework, which is the B impact assessment, to understand and measure your impact and use that to inspire you to improve. It is a certification for those companies who want to go the extra mile and they want to prove that they are meeting a high standard of social and environmental performance. They want to verify that through a third party. You can choose to get certified and hold yourselves to account by being certified, and also communicate to your stakeholders that this is something that you take seriously and are committed to. And I think kind of most importantly, it's a movement. The point of B Corp is to really encourage people to use business as a force for good and to kind of change the way that we do business and to try and shift away from traditional shareholder capitalism to a more stakeholder driven view where we consider people and planet as well as profit. And like I said, the good news is that is all staying the same. Those things will all still be true, but we are going through an evolution. So at present, the B impact assessment, that framework that I mentioned, is built around 5 pillars. Those are governance, workers, community, environment, and customers. And in order to certify as a B Corp, every question within that assessment is weighted with a score. And in order to certify as a B Corp, you need to score 80 points as a minimum. Now, technically, this is incredibly rare, but technically, if you did amazingly in all the questions on the assessment, you could score over 200 points. So that just shows you there's some flexibility within the assessment at this point in time in regards to picking and choosing the areas that you focus on and that you choose not to focus on. We are going to hear today how this is going to evolve. This is the current evolution of standards is the biggest one yet since B Corp first launched in 2006. So it's an exciting time. We are really excited that B Lab has decided to go on this journey, and obviously they take their position very seriously as leaders of impact. And we know that this is going to really be a step change in the movement and the impact that we can collectively make. So we'll dive in a minute to understand more about what the new standards are. But first of all, curious to understand, of those of us in the room and the audience today, how confident are you about the upcoming changes? Do you feel like number 3, you're really confident, you know what's up, and you're just here to have a chat and a listen? Or maybe number 1, you're really unsure, you're not sure what's going on, or somewhere in the middle? So there should be a poll available to you to pop your answer in there. And in the meantime, I am very happy to be introducing our guest speaker today, who is the wonderful Joey van den Brink. Joey is a superstar in the B Corp community. He has been with B Lab for the past 6 years. So he has witnessed a lot in regards to the evolution of the community and the standard. And he has not only witnessed a lot, but impacted a lot. He is now the head of certification and standards at B Lab Europe, which is a big role as they go through the biggest evolution that the standards have seen. To note, before everybody wants to kind of accost him with questions and suggestions, Joey is not directly involved in the development of the standards in his role, but he is the kind of the conduit of guidance and information between the global standards body, that's B Lab Global, and businesses on the ground in Europe, where Joey is based at B Lab Europe. So he's a total expert on the subject. He is the perfect person to have with us today. We're very lucky that he could clear some time in his schedule for us. And in a moment, we will hand over to him to hear all of his wisdom. First of all, just looking at some of these poll results. So unsurprisingly, 42% of attendees are unsure about the new standards, and 55% need more info. 3% of you are confident. Okay, so goes to show we're in the right place, and we are definitely in need of hearing some of Joey's wonderful wisdom. So I will hand over without further ado to Joey. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Amy. What a great introduction. Very happy to be here, and hopefully by the end of this meeting, for the 97% of the audience that is still unsure or needs more info, we can have at least shed a little bit more light on the evolution of the B Corp standards that is going on right now. So maybe the first question that is on your mind is, why are we changing the B Corp standards? I'm just, to be sure, I think, Amy, you stopped sharing your screen, so you probably want to pull that back up. There we go. So why are we changing the B Corp standards right now? So first of all, I think it's no surprise to many of us that we are living in a time where there's many changes coming our way. There have been various global crises, whether it's a political one, whether it's an environmental one, or a social crisis. And so the need to change and to lead the way is more present than ever. And this is why B-Lab started this process of developing new standards for B Corp certification, what we've come to call the Evolution of Standards, or EOS, back in 2020. And the idea is that with this process, with this development of new standards, that B Corps will be able to position themselves as leaders in terms of social and environmental positive impact now and in many years to come. And this has always been the DNA of the B Corp movement, where we've strived for positive impact and where we've strived for continuous improvement. And so, as you might be familiar with, the B Corp standards have changed on various occasions over the last 17 years since the B Corp movement has been around. Right now, we are on version 6 of the B Impact Assessment, which means there have already been 5 iterations previously of updated standards for B Corp certification. We've also developed a new pathway for larger multinational companies, where we've acknowledged that the standards that those companies need to meet and the process in which they're able to meet that, those are different than for some other, maybe small, medium enterprises that are out there. However, the process that we're going through now is the biggest one to date. And so, as Amy already introduced, the current performance requirements for B Corp certification are quite straightforward, yet not always clear to everyone. So in order to be a B Corp right now, you need to reach 80 points on the B Impact Assessment. You need to be a for-profit business, and you need to be in existence for at least 1 year. These 80 points are made out of more than 200 different standards in the B Impact Assessment. And companies accumulate points in the different standards. And as long as their total score is over 80, they are able to certify. And although this is a great threshold, one that is ambitious for many companies and challenging to achieve, it is not always clear to others what it means to be a B Corp. What are the standards that those B Corp companies are reaching? And now, with the new evolution of standards, we're changing this dynamic, and we're moving away from this accumulation of points across different standards to minimum requirements that have to be met, baseline requirements that have to be met across 10 core impact topics that you see on the screen. So the reason why we are going through this process is to make the B Corp certification standards focus on meaningful impact, focus on clarity, and focus on responsiveness. What do we mean by that? Is to say that companies that obtain B Corp certification on the evolution of standards meet baseline requirements for some of those topics that are considered the most material, the most impactful for the social and environmental transformations that we have to go through as a society. We also want to work on clarity so that anyone knows which standards are being met by B Corps and that those standards are the same across the board. And we want to work on responsiveness. We want to make sure that our standards are able to adjust on what is happening in society and the different challenges that companies face in being a force for good. The new framework of draft standards focuses on 10 specific topics. And you can see them here on the screen. They go from collective action to fair wages to climate action. There are 8 topical requirements and 2 more general requirements. So we also focus on risk standards, the way that companies manage their potential negative impacts. And these risk standards are then integrated into the other requirements. We also focus on impact management. And by impact management, we mean the efforts that companies put in continuously improving their impact over time. So companies shouldn't just meet the certification requirements at one point in time. They should be continuously focusing to do more, to make a more positive impact. And this is the impact management requirements, which then spans all the different other topics as well. So this process has been going on for about 4 years now. And you might be wondering what we've been up to in the meantime. So on the screen, you see a very comprehensive overview of the different steps that we've taken so far, plus what else is to come after this. So in 2020, B Lab started with a call for input on the B Corp performance requirements. And this initial call and the review and the input that we've then received have led us to what we now call the evolution of standards and the draft standards that we've been working on over the past couple of years. In order to get valuable stakeholder input, there have been 2 rounds of public feedback, as well as a lot of work on regional standards advisory groups. So getting a lot of regional expertise in helping us understand how our standards shape up to other frameworks that are out there in the market. Right now, we've conducted the second public consultation at the start of this year, and we are in the process of analyzing the results from the feedback that we've gotten from the public. The idea is that this is the last round of feedback and that the findings will be used in developing the final set of standards that are expected to come out towards the end of the year. This process is a continuous iteration, which means that we always work with initial draft standards, but thanks to the feedback and the input that we receive, we are able to develop our thinking, to update some nuances in the standards, and to make sure that the standards are also inclusive and equitable for different groups that might be looking to work with them. To give you an idea of what that looks like, we added some results from the initial consultation that happened at the end of 2022. I would have loved to update this for the second public consultation, but this is too recent and we don't have all the results yet. So what you see here is that we've gathered feedback from the B Corp community. We've gathered feedback from the general public. We've worked with focus groups to get topic-specific feedback. And we've tried to include as many different target segments in the feedback as possible to make sure that the feedback is representative not only for specific regions, but for the global reach that the B Corp movement spans. In the first public consultation, we also asked about whether respondents thought the draft standards would be attainable and whether they represented a high level of social and environmental standards. So the results of this initial public consultation were quite positive. 86% of respondents indicated that they thought that the new draft standards represented high standards and that companies abiding by these standards will make meaningful progress on pressing social and environmental issues. We also asked whether the companies thought that these standards were attainable. And here we saw that about 70% of respondents thought that the draft standards would be attainable to them. And although this is a positive result, it also shows the need that both for the B Corp community and for those companies that would like to become B Corps in the future, that there's work to be done to make sure that they can start adapting the new set of standards. And that brings me to what's coming up next. Where do we go from here? Like I mentioned, we're in the process of analyzing the results of the second public consultation, which are meant to be finalized by the end of the year, which would then result in the final set of standards that would have to be approved by BLab's Standards Oversight Committee, which is part of our board, as well as the Standards Advisory Council, which is an independent governance body that oversees the work that we do on our standards. The set of standards will then have to be built into our digital experience, what we call the B Impact Assessment platform. And we expect that towards the second half of 2025, the B Impact Assessment will then show the standards. And this is the first opportunity for companies to start familiarizing themselves with it, to also start using and testing the new standards and the digital experience that's meant to facilitate this. Of course, anyone can already start familiarizing themselves with the standards by looking at some of the resources that have become available during the public consultation. However, there might be small changes that are still coming up due to the results that were obtained. And then from 2026 and beyond, we expect that companies then start transitioning towards the new evolution of standards and be able to achieve B Corp certification on the new standards. What does this mean for you? This slide shows in a little bit more detail kind of like the steps that are still to come. And here you can kind of see like what this means for the certification process, what it means for the digital experience, but also what this means for upskilling. And what we mean by upskilling is that we are aware that these standards represent a lot of new knowledge that either companies or either certified B Corps or companies that are looking to work with the B Corp standards might not yet be familiar with. And so we see it as our responsibility as an organization to also create educational tools for companies to start familiarizing themselves with the B Corp standards, and also work with some of the partners in the ecosystem, such as Seismic, to help companies be able to meet the new certification requirements. So this is something that you can be looking forward to in 2025. With that, I'll pass this brief overview of the evolution of standards and the process that we've been through so far. And I believe we are now moving towards questions.
Thanks, Joey. I'm actually going to chat a little bit more before we go into questions, but thank you so much. That's really helpful to get your introduction and view on things. I'm going to talk a little bit now around what does this actually mean for your business. So there's a whole bunch of information, and obviously, you'll all want to take a look at the specific standards and see what the literal requirements are. We wanted to talk about the reality of this for your business. So I think the first thing to call out is the strengths that lie within this new evolution of standards and the opportunities that it provides to you. So first thing to call out is that still the assessment and the certification process is very holistic. It intends to and does kind of cover the breadth of the organization still. It brings in all stakeholders and all kind of consideration of different stakeholder bodies. So you still have this great kind of broad view of your performance. That being said, it's also still tailored. So the assessment is tailored. It currently is, and it will continue to be tailored to companies based on their size, sector, and partly your location. And what's cool actually in the new standard is that there's 2 additional size brackets added in. So whereas on the current or old BIA, the highest size bracket is 1,000 plus, there's now a bracket for 1,000 to 9,999, and then a 10,000 plus bracket, which just means it's more accommodating for larger organizations and more kind of representative for some of those larger organizations. The other thing to Sorry if I've got a noisy microphone. The other thing to call out is that you can have a lot more confidence and clarity in what it means to be a B Corp. Because with the flexibility of the current version, you could be, there might be certain things that some B Corps are doing and other things that others aren't. So you can't say definitively right now, because that company's a B Corp, I know that they pay all their employees a living wage, or I know that they definitely have a climate transition plan. They might be doing really well in some areas and not so well in other areas. But with this evolution, we know that you can make certain statements and assumptions of what it means to be a B Corp. And that also B Lab is working really hard to align those with the green claims and empowering consumers directives, which means that the kind of the statements and the standards that it's being built on stand up to the kind of new and evolving attention that's being paid to making correct, confident claims and not accidentally greenwashing. The other aspect there that B Lab have been considering in the development of the standards is they've been working really hard to make sure that there's a strong degree of interoperability with other frameworks and reporting requirements that are out there. So as you may or may not be aware of, there are an increasing amount of reporting regulations and requirements coming out all the time. One of those, for example, being CSRD, which is the EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And the standards have been built to be aligned with that framework in order to make sure that you are, A, not having to do things twice. So if you are working towards CSRD, or you will be soon, and B Corp, that means that you can kind of have a united effort and focus, so you're not having to do everything twice. And it's also a great way to help you prepare either way. If you're already aligning to CSRD, that'll help you with B Lab, and vice versa. And then clarity as well, which I think is something, you know, to Joey's point earlier, there is a certain degree of selection and on options of how currently you can certify. And a lot of our clients just want to be told what to do. They're like, just tell me, what's the bottom line? What do I need to do to become a B Corp? And with this new approach, that will be clear. There will be clarity on, you need to do these things, you need to be performing in this way in order to certify as a B Corp. So that's actually quite helpful. And then finally, one of the things that I'm most excited about is the increased amount of transparency. So while at the moment there is quite a degree of interpretation involved in the assessment, and certain questions and answer options can be determined in a number of or interpreted in a number of different ways, and a big part of going through the certification process is figuring out the definitions behind things and what it really means to be meeting a standard. A lot of that guesswork is now going to be taken out, because for each requirement in the assessment, there will be clarity and clear guidance on things like, what is the outcome and purpose of this action? That, for example, will be explaining why does B Lab care about this? Why do they feel it's important? And what is the positive impact that you'll have if you're doing this action well? There will also be terms and definitions, so you don't have to think, well, I think of this statement like that. What does B Lab think of it as? There will also be criteria for compliance and evidence. So it will tell you, in order to be confident that you're meeting this, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And the evidence that you should upload needs to look like A, B, and C. And that's much more aligned with the other frameworks out there, like ISO or CSRD or other reporting requirements. So I think that provides a lot of calmness and clarity so that you can focus on the impact that you're creating and not figuring out the kind of logistics around it. With the good, obviously, just come some flags, not necessarily bad at all, but the flip side to what I was saying about that kind of clarity of what you need to do means that, of course, you do then lose some of the flexibility. So is just to bear in mind that for the first time, B Corp certification will be containing these kind of directive requirements, and that's something to get used to. It's a different way of working. The other thing to call out as well is that, as Joey has done a great job of talking to, this is a work in progress. So while the standards are currently available online to look at, and we recommend that you start using them to inform your behavior, they are not the finalized version. So just bear in mind, as you are using them, as you're referring to them, these still have scope to change and evolve over time. So to that point of engaging with the new standards, what should you do now to start kind of bedding in? Well, I think first things to think about is, why would you want to do this? And there's a number of reasons why. First of all, as we talk about a lot, one of the most useful aspects of B Corp and the framework is that it helps to inform your strategy, whether you are interested in certifying or not. We highly recommend using the framework, because really the B Corp framework is the best, most holistic framework out there to inform us and inspire us in what we should be doing and how we should be behaving as a responsible and impactful company. And this new version of the standards is doing that and then some. It's a great update to really keep us on our toes and make sure that the framework is reflecting the reality of the society and the environment that we're operating in. So using the updated kind of standards to inform your sustainability strategy, either if you are building one for the first time, or if you're reviewing your existing strategy and you want to check where might we have some blind spots, where are there some gaps that we need to fill in, referring to this to help to inspire that will be really useful. And it'll help you to feel confident that you've got a holistic view. Also, if you are an existing B Corp, we recommend starting pretty quickly to look at the new standards so that you can start preparing for your recertification. It's seeming like there will be the opportunity to recertify from 2026 onwards on this new standard. And so obviously you want to start getting up to speed with it, understanding what does it look like for you in practice, and start working on this new standard so that you can understand what you'll need to do to recertify in a confident, successful way. And then the other thing is, maybe you're not a B Corp yet, but you're keen to be one in the future. So, for example, we are helping one of our clients right now who is a FTSE 100 organization. So they're pretty big, they're fairly complex. And for them, they're really interested in B Corp certification, but they know that it wouldn't be a quick pathway. They know it would take time, and it's unlikely that they would be certifying before 2026. And so we're helping them to use the new standards to create a gap analysis and to understand what would certification look like for them as a company who will likely be certifying a few years down the line on the new standards. So if for some reason you think B Corp certification is in your future, but for whatever reason at the moment it's not right for you in the next immediate year or two, then you want to start kind of planning your future pathway with this new version of the standards in mind. And when we talk about that kind of using the new framework and planning it into things, it's definitely an aspect where you're going to be kind of gradually ramping it up. This isn't something that maybe some companies who are really amazing will do, but the average company will not approach these new standards and be able to do everything all at once. It will be a kind of gearing up pathway. So if you're already using the current BIA, if you're already certified, that will continue. That is still a useful framework and still something that you should not stop doing. You should maintain that. But the recommendation is to gradually build in the new standards over time and start working on more and more. And built into the new certification process will be that requirement for continuous improvement, as is mentioned. So your journey will kind of look like starting out with a gap analysis to understand what are you already doing and what areas do you need to improve on? And I'll kind of show an example of that in a second. And then starting to implement those minimum requirements for your first round of certification, whether that be your an existing B Corp and you've recertified on the new version, or you're certifying for the first time on the new standards, that will be you meeting those minimum requirements. And then for your next round of certification, you will be needing to implement improvements and showing that you've achieved that continuous improvement. And so it will just kind of go on an upward slope over time as you evolve and continue to become a more and more impactful organization. It's all about continuous improvement and kind of layering on that performance. Conscious that we haven't kind of showed you the specific standards and what they are. So this next slide is just an example of one of the pillars of the assessment and what some of those requirements will look like. So as we mentioned, the assessment is going to be tailored to companies based on their size and sector. This is an example of a medium-sized company who's in the retail and wholesale track. And this company, we're looking at the climate action pillar of the assessment, and there's going to be 3 minimum requirements according to the draft standards of the climate action pillar. So those are measuring your greenhouse gas emissions annually, then setting a science-based target to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees, and then that the company has implemented a climate transition plan. Those 3 requirements are the same for any company going through the process, they're true for any company, and that's going to be their standards. But the sub-requirements underneath are the things that are tailored to you based on your size and sector. So a larger organization, for example, might have some extra sub-requirements, or a smaller one might have a couple less. We know it's a lot to digest, and we like to help our clients to just kind of understand the most simplest terms. What do you need to know? What are you doing? What do you need to focus on? So we've kind of developed a proprietary tool that helps our clients to identify the exact requirements for your track. And we like to help them to conduct this gap analysis so that you can have a clear indicator. Okay, for example, first one, you're achieving that, good to go, just continue your performance, it's fine. The second one, in regards to setting a science-based target, okay, you're nearly there, but your target is still being worked out, and we know that in 2 months' time, at the end of that process, you'll be green. The final one, you haven't started on your climate transition plan yet. This is something that you'll need to work on. We help you to prioritize that. So hopefully that just helps to kind of visualize the reality behind this. Going to go to questions in just a sec, but so do pop them in the chat if you have them. But just wanted to kind of wrap up with some recommendations of how to move forward from here. Conscious that this is probably a lot of information that's been chucked at you in 43 minutes. And just want to simplify by saying first thing to do is to keep up to date with the evolving standards. There's a lot of information there. Seismic will be keeping you updated. Something that is important to us is taking complicated information or an abundance of information and trying to digest it for you and make it easy to understand and kind of deliver you the bottom line up front. So we'll be continuing to do that on LinkedIn, newsletters, blogs, etc. So do follow us in those places to find out more. The next thing we recommend is to just kind of start engaging with it, start socializing it internally in your businesses. This is, although 2026 kind of feels like far away, it's not. So kind of get yourselves a high level plan in place of when you're going to start engaging with the process, when you're going to start kind of transitioning towards this standard. And then really the important thing is to just conduct a gap analysis so that you understand what are the requirements for you and where are you doing well, where do you need to be taking action that isn't currently built into your strategy, your planning, so that you can build those gaps into your strategy and planning. And the final thing I wanted to end on is a reminder that there is still time to certify on the current standards. So while it's important to be engaging in these and to be getting going, also you still have time to certify. So if you are thinking of certifying as a B Corp and you want to do that in the next, kind of 2 years or a year and a half, we recommend go for it while the current version is still live. I'm going to flip us over now to some discussion and stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Amy and Joey, for sharing your insights. Now for a very exciting part of the session, which is the Q&A discussion. Thank you for all your brilliant questions in the chat. There's great questions and a lot that have come through. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in. So firstly, there was just a sort of practicality question that we saw from Nick, Gemma and Oliver. They are keen to know, Joey, where can they see the standards currently in their draft form?
Thank you, Olivia. Yeah, important to note these are indeed draft standards, right? So they are subject to change based on the last public consultation that we've went through. For those that are interested, there is a microsite that is live where companies can get all the ins and outs of the draft standards. And for those that are really interested, there's also a 500-page document that has all the ins and outs of every standard for every category, how companies should be able to comply with those standards, etc. So I would suggest that we would share those together with the recordings.
Great, thank you, Joey. We will do, and I've just popped a link to the microsite in the chat as well for anyone keen to dive into the details straight away. So next, just another sort of practical question. We've got quite a few questions coming through from the audience about timeline. So firstly, from Richard Bowles, he asks, Joey, for a company just considering B Corp now, should they be working to the new standards or the current ones?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the process of moving towards evolution of standards is a transition, right? So there's always going to be a period of time where companies are either in the process of certifying on the existing B impact assessment standards or are going to start with the new evolution of standards. So the rule of thumb that we're applying is any company that is due for recertification by the end of 2025 or that wants to apply for B Corp certification at this moment in time should proceed with the current set of standards on version 6. We will then work out a community transition strategy, which talks a little bit more about what is the pathway for companies that are due for recertification in 2026. But some of those details have to be worked out based on the feedback that we've received in the last public consultation.
Thank you. That's really clear. So we actually had a question from Paul at Just Spices, who are a B Corp currently and due to recertify in May 2026. So just checking, what should they do? When might they expect to hear more about their transition to the new standards in 2026?
Yeah, so practically for those cases, right, we currently ask companies to submit for recertification 6 months before their due date. So that would be still in 2025 in this case. So for those companies, we ask please submit on version 6 of the B impact assessments, so the current standards.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So any business which is due to submit in 2025 submits on the current standards. Is that right?
That's right.
Thank you. That's really clear. Okay, now I've got a question for you, Amy. So for businesses using B Corp as a framework for their sustainability strategy, rather than to obtain certification, which standards would you recommend they use and why?
Good question. Well, obviously sorry. I thought you meant which standards in general. You mean the current version or the new version?
Yes, correct. So which version of the B Corp standards should businesses be using to inform their strategy as these new versions come to light?
Yeah. So I think to that kind of visual that I shared before, I think that for companies already using the current BIA, definitely you should continue using that. There's nothing in there that you should stop doing, but it's about layering in the new version. So I do recommend that companies working on their strategies now look to the new version of the standards and understand the 10 pillars and really work on making sure that they're taking some action in each of those areas. That's just to avoid blind spots and to make sure that you're preparing for certification if that's what you want to do, but more importantly, a huge amount of expertise and time has gone into developing these standards, some of the best minds in sustainability and impact. So these really are the kind of creme de la creme of standards. So definitely recommend looking to the new standards and ensuring that even if, like I said, you're not going for everything all at once, you are kind of taking action on something within each of the main pillars.
Great, thank you. That's really clear, and I think it's really exciting to know that we've got even more resources on top of the current B Impact assessment to leverage to build a really strong sustainability strategy and program. We've had a handful of questions on interoperability, so I'll put these to you, Joey. Natalie is keen to know, will these align more closely with CSRD and CSDDD? And Ella is and Felicia is asking, how will they align with the SDGs? Will they do more to promote those?
Thank you for that question. So I shall try not to go into detail about standards for this one specifically, but I think what's important to note is that CSRD is a reporting standard and B Corp certification is a performance standard. So they are quite different in nature. Nevertheless, in the design of the standards, we try to create as much interoperability with CSRD as possible. So they're what we call equivalencies. So when standards have either the same intention or they have the same outcome of what is ought to be achieved in the CSRD and the CSRS. For CSDDD, it's a little bit different because CSDDD, of course, has actual performance-based requirements for companies. So the interoperability there is higher with the new evolution of standards. It's a little bit the same for the SDGs, right? The SDGs already have a very high level of interoperability with the current version of the B Impact assessment. As some of the people in the audience might know, next to the B Impact assessment, BLab has also designed the SDG Action Manager, which was meant to take the the criteria of the SDGs and translate them into actionable standards that companies could use to improve their impact against the SDGs. So currently there's about 44% interoperability between the SDG Action Manager and version 6 of the standards. And similarly, it will also inform the new evolution of standards.
Thank you. That's really clear. We've had a number of questions about risk as well. So Olivia asks, for companies who cannot certify at the moment, Joey, do you expect this to change under the new standards?
That's of course a question that should be answered with it depends, because it depends on why companies cannot certify at this point in time, right? If it's related to the corporate form of a company, for example, where companies might either be non-profits or hybrid corporate forms, those requirements are not expected to change. We also see that some companies are currently ineligible or are paused for certification due to risk considerations. And for those companies, there might be changes with the new evolution of standards, or potentially already before that, dependent on why they're currently unable to certify. But as part of the evolution of standards, there's also a new set of basic standards being developed, as you might have seen in the figures that were shown in the slides. And these risk standards, they take into consideration a new approach for build up to due diligence. So it is expected that a lot of the work that has been going on now and that will go on next year for BLab to develop its position on certain controversial issues will all be fed into those risk standards for evolution of standards.
Okay, that's That's clear that there's work being done on that, and much like the draft standards, will be kind of more and more clarity as those risk standards are developed. So thank you for letting us know. And as our final question today, I just want to acknowledge we've had lots and lots of questions, and unfortunately have not been able to get through them, but we're really grateful for them. We're going to do our best to answer as many of these offline afterwards for you. Thank you for all of those. But to wrap up today, I'd like to ask Amy first and then Joey. This change marks an incredible milestone for the B Corp movement, one which will continue to elevate the movement's growth and awareness for using business as a force for good. So what are you most excited to see, Amy, as a result of the evolution of standards?
Sorry. Two things. One is a practical kind of geeky thing, which is the clarity that I was talking about before around the standards themselves. So that lack of relying on interpreting information, and actually the clarity of here's what evidence you need, here's how you define this word, here's why we care about this topic, because engaging with the B Corp framework should be about implementing impact, not about navigating the language or the trying to understand what do they mean. So I'm really excited about that. But bigger picture, what I'm excited about is the B Corp movement is around 300,000 companies using the B Corp framework, almost 9,000 companies who are certified. That is a huge amount of businesses and people who are trying to create positive change. And this standard is really a step up. The current version is great, but there's some gaps. And we, as Joey said before, we need to take serious seismic, if I may, action and towards saving our planet and society. And so this just really helps to kind of rally the troops and bring those people using the framework together to seriously dial up their impact and hold them to account and create the positive change that we need to see.
Thank you, Amy. And with the engagement we've had in the chat from the audience today, I think we've got definitely a lot of people invested in and with a lot of energy to help dial up that impact, which is great. And Joey, do you have anything to add? What are you most excited to see as a result of the standards, the new standards?
Yeah, a lot of what Amy was sharing, of course. I think the social and the sustainability landscape are changing at such a rapid pace at the moment, and I think with the B Corp movement, we've really tried to anticipate and react to a lot of the changes that are going on. But it's hard to kind of keep track of everything that is going on, and I think that's what's really exciting for me with the evolution of standards, is that it gives us the ability as a movement to say, let us reset and let us now look forward towards the future of what we want to be as a movement and what kind of leadership do we want to display, and how can we then validate that we're actually able to incorporate that kind of leadership in the way that our businesses are run. And I think that's been, for me, the most exciting part of the evolution of standards, is that it kind of reshapes the identity and the DNA of the B Corp movement with the 17 years of track record that we have behind us, but with a lot of positive ambition of what we want to be in the future. And so I can imagine that for many people that are with certified B Corps, there's a lot of anxiety about this big transition that is coming our way. We feel it as well in B Lab, of course, because there's a lot of different things that we have to worry about. But I think with everyone that I talk to, this level of ambition and almost the philosophical level of what we want to be as a movement is the thing that is really driving a lot of the energy and the excitement of what the US can be.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Joey. What an energizing note to end on. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining today. Amy, Joey, thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights. Our next breakfast briefing will be after our summer break in September, where we'll be looking at how to set a carbon reduction pathway in your business, which is something that features quite heavily in the new standards. So if you're keen on the new standards, I suggest you join that one. And in the meantime, I'd really encourage everyone on the call today, give Seismic and B-Lab a follow on LinkedIn. That's going to be a really great source of information for you, as well as our Seismic Soundbites newsletter. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or in need of some support when thinking about the new standards. We'd love to continue this conversation with you. So thank you very much. I hope you've now digested your tasty breakfasts and coffees and have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Bye.